My name is Tito, and welcome back to my yet to be named podcast. I say yet to be named because as at the time of recording this, I'm yet to come up with a name for this podcast. Although, as at when you are watching this podcast probably already has a name because I can't upload this episode without there being a name for the place where I'm uploading it to. Yeah, that's said and done. How are you guys doing? I hope you're good. Let me just adjust my microphone a bit. I'm really just trying to get the hang of this whole podcasting thing. A couple of episodes in, a couple of recordings in. I don't know what episode this is going to be in terms of what number, but let's just say I've recorded a little bit in advance and still trying to get the hang of the hang of things like that. For example, just talking off the cuff and having to just keep on flowing even when you make a mistake. That's the beauty of YouTube and things that are not live. You can just cut stuff out, cut the mistakes out, and make it look perfect. But with podcasting, where it feels like things are almost live, you just have to keep on going. And it's part of why I'm doing a podcast, so that I can be better on the fly, speaking on the fly, and with public speaking, or just delivering a thought in like a single breath. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing a podcast. There are several others, but to find out what they are, I guess you need to watch episode 1 where I talked about that kind of stuff. In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about something that I'm actually very keen on, something that I've been looking forward to for a while, and something I'm going to be addressing quite a bit on this podcast, and that is friendship. Friendships are obviously they're a type of relationship, and I've noticed that not just with myself, but with lots of people, friendships have been quite peculiar lately. Things have been happening, things that people have not planned for to happen, so to speak. For example, with me, I've noticed that in recent years, say the last 10 years, I've lost a number of significant friendships, like people that I've been friends with for a while. All of a sudden, we're not friends anymore for reasons that I will not mention. Sometimes disagreements, sometimes we just grow apart, just for different reasons. I've lost some friendships, and I haven't been making that many new friendships, ironically. And the irony of this age that we live in is that at this point in history, the world is the most connected it's ever been. I'm sure you guys have heard before, because of the internet and globalization and all that good stuff, right? Technology and whatnot. We are incredibly connected on this planet. We are more connected than we've ever been. Oops, a bit of spit on the microphone there. More connected than we've ever been, but we're more isolated as individuals than we've ever been. Loneliness is really high. I don't know if it's at an all-time high, but it's really high for people. People are very isolated these days, even though we are meeting people online who live halfway across the world. It's quite weird. And I think I'm also a victim of that. Like I said, I've lost a few friendships in recent times. And while I've been making friends on the internet and on Instagram and social media, it's just not the same. Internet friends are not the same as real life friends, people that you can share your ups and downs with, people you can pour your heart out to, people that you can, just go and visit and just hang out with. Internet friends are so different from real life friends. And I can't even tell you when last I met a real life quality friend, like in person, like a physical friend who like back in the days when we're in school, where, you spend like half the day together and you're just hanging out and you're just so open to one another. I haven't made one of those types of friends in a very long time. And I've noticed that I'm not the only one who's been going through this issue with friends. I noticed that when I listen to my favorite podcast, I Said What I Said, which is hosted by two lovely ladies, Jola and FK. I'm sure many of you guys know them. Lots of times people email them, complaining about the same issue, that they don't have that many friends, and how do FK and Jules do it with their friendship groups, because they seem so tightly knit and they talk about how they hang out with this friend and that friend all the time. And the people that email or send emails to their podcast say that they're struggling, that they're trying to make new friends and they feel very lonely and stuff like that. And these are people that are emailing from across the world, particularly the US, the UK and Nigeria. But generally it's a global thing that people are finding it really hard to make friends. And so that just goes to show that I'm not the only one who's experiencing this or who is going through this friendship recession. And it's funny that I call it that because recently I stumbled on a podcast called The Friendship Recession with or by Richard Reeves, I believe his name is. Brilliant documentary. It's very short. I think it's like 8 minutes. But Richard Reeves really broke down this whole friendship recession thing. I think that's actually the name, like I said, The Friendship Recession. He talks about why we are in this situation we're in, why people feel so isolated, and why, it feels so, why people feel stigmatized, by this problem of not having real quality friends. And that's another thing. There are acquaintances, there are casual friends, then there are close friends. I mean, you can break down friendship into different levels, but I think the real thing that people are complaining about these days is quality friendships, close friends, people that you can really be yourself with. Anyway, this video, or this episode rather, I say video because this is a video podcast, by the way. In case you're listening to this episode on one of the podcast platforms, I want you to know that there's a video version of this episode on YouTube. So feel free to search for me there. It would make more sense in this video in particular because I will be sharing clips of Richard Reeves. Is his name Richard Reeves? Yeah, Richard Reeves documentary, The Friendship Recession. So yeah, be sure to check me out on YouTube. But coming back to the documentary, right? He talks about several things in the documentary. He talks about the different friendship formations, like the fact that they're friends from school, they're friends from work, they're friends you meet through voluntary activities, and then they're friends that you meet online. Those are like the main 4 friendship categories. He also talks about how many close friends people tend to have in the documentary. I think he said the number of friends that most people have on average is like from 12 to 15, and then the number of close friends that most people have is from about 3 to 4. Lots of people can't even boast of having one close friend, to be honest, or 2. I have one close friend. I have one person that I can call my close friend who I can tell almost anything to. I thought of one more person, but I'm not sure. But I'm sure of one close friend, right? Maybe 2. But at the same time, there's so many things I require from friendship or a close friendship that I feel like I'd be burdening her or, stressing, putting too much friendship stress, if I can use that term, on her if I were to talk about all the things that I want to talk about with a close friend. So ideally, I'd like to have maybe 3 or 4 close friends, but I have 1 or 2 thus far. But these are some of the things that Richard Reeves addresses. I want to dive now into what the part of the documentary where he talks about why we are losing friends, because that portion, it really hit home. So let's play the video.
We've seen a decline in lots of traditional institutions, including the family, people marrying later if they do marry, obviously in areas like religion, in some cases the labor market. And so what that means is there's more of a need for people to have social relationships, connections outside of those institutions. That's where friends are hugely important. But during the same period, we've seen a real decline in the number of people who say that they have a number of close friends. There are a number of factors that could be getting in the way of forming friendships, particularly in 21st century US. Number 1 is geographical mobility, people moving away from their homes, moving to big cities or career opportunities, which necessarily stretches their friendship network. Parents are spending quite a bit more time on parenting, on looking after their kids, which squeezes out the time that they might have had for friendships before. There's also a lot of emphasis on work and careers, what some scholars call workism, which is a sense that your identity is so wrapped up in your work that you don't have as much energy and time left over for friends. And then lastly, I'd point to the breakdown of relationships. As marriages break up or couples separate, that can be really fracturing of friendship groups that have been formed as a couple. Once they break up, the friendship groups very often get shattered as well.
All right. So what Richard was talking about there, why we're losing friends, that makes total sense in terms of mobility. And lots of people are traveling, or lots of people are relocating to other parts of the world or other parts of the country, particularly here in Nigeria, where there's like a mass exodus of skilled labor, people moving to first world countries for better economic and social opportunities, because things in Nigeria of late have been less than ideal. So there's that. I have lots of friends who have moved, and that's put a lot of strain on our friendship relationship. I'm not as close to them as I was when they were here. Well, there are one or two that now, funny enough, are closer, but it's just not the same. So he mentioned that. Also, he mentioned labor and workism, as he called it. That is a huge one, not just in Nigeria, but I think for millennials and millennials in particular across the world. We are just trying to keep up. We're trying to exist. We're trying to survive. We're trying to thrive. And as a result, we're working so hard, spend so many hours at work, so many hours on the commute to work, that when all that is over and done with, where is the time to socialize? Where is the time to meet new people and to have, to foster new friendships? We just want to rest and prepare for the following week. So because of economic situations and just trying to, keep up with the rat race, so to speak, it really puts a lot of stress on friendships. And as a result, we can't hang out with friends, and we can't even make new friends. And another thing, another factor, which Richard didn't mention in the documentary, I think, is like the opportunities to meet new friends or to meet new people, they just aren't there. They're thinning out. They're few and far between. We don't see things like house parties anymore, like a few years ago, 10 or more years ago, here in Lagos, there used to be something called the Lagos Carnival, where it's just a street party for like on several streets throughout like a portion of the city. And I've gone with friends. I met new friends there, but that stopped a few years ago. So that's just one example of some really big social gatherings that just don't happen anymore and don't provide people with the opportunity to meet strangers and to make new friends. And it's really sad. Think about it. Where are the places where people can meet new people and make new friends in this day and age? I mean, we barely see games nights, and games nights really are just for people who already know each other. There are nightclubs, but it's hard to meet or make nightclubs and clubbing. It doesn't seem like the kind of place where you meet friends, to be honest. What else? There are concerts. Concerts aren't really the place where you make new friends either, because you're there for a purpose. You've probably gone with your existing friends. There just aren't enough opportunities. I mean, karaoke, there aren't enough opportunities nowadays, for whatever reason, for people to meet strangers. And this is the big difference between making friends maybe in your 30s or maybe in this age, no, let's say in your 30s and above, than making friends younger, in your teens or in your 20s, right? Because in your teens and your 20s, it was easier to make friends back then because you were compelled to go to school every day, to interact with some set of people every day, to get to know them every day. And by virtue of that, by virtue of the closeness, the proximity, the interaction, which was so regular on a daily basis in many cases, people became friends back then. And even with work, people make friends at work because they see their colleagues at work on a daily basis. And university as well. You go to school, you make friends, you see them every day. So, and it's no surprise that, particularly from school, it's friends that we made back then that are still some of our closest friends and oldest friends to date, even in your 30s or your 40s and beyond. But when you come to, being in your 30s, especially in this day and age of remote work and working from home, where are the places you're going to where you're seeing somebody on a daily basis and interacting with a group of people on a daily basis enough for you to foster a friendship with those people? Those opportunities, apart from work, and that's even if you're going to a physical office, those opportunities just do not exist anymore, which is why it's harder to make new friends as an adult, as a fully formed adult, maybe 30s and above, than it was when you were in school, or when you were, an adolescent, or when you were like in your early 20s or in your mid 20s. I'm sure you get the point. And so these opportunities to meet new people just aren't there anymore. And that's one of the reasons why it's hard to, first of all, make new friends, not to even talk of fostering or, just developing friendships. Okay, let's move on and talk about the benefits and the advantages and disadvantages of friendship. And this was one that didn't dawn on me until I heard it in the video, this Friendship Recession documentary. And in it, I don't know if I should play the clip. Let me play the clip for the heck of it, right? So that you can hear it from the man himself.
There are a few downsides to being without friends. One is lack of access to opportunities. It turns out that many people get a lot of jobs and opportunities and chances to go and do things through their friends. So friends do act as a communications information channel. But there are some quite profound effects on health too, mental health and even physical health. It's not exactly clear what the causal relationships are, what's going on, but it is clear that having friends is protective of your health in various ways. And so it's not just that being without friends can make you isolated in a sort of economic or a social sense, but it can also make you sad. And being sad, it turns out, is also bad in terms of your physical as well as emotional health. Today, 15% of young...
Wow. So yeah, disadvantages of not having friends. So this whole thing of not having friends, it's deeper and more far-reaching than you may think. You think, oh, I don't work well with others, I'm a loner, but you could be missing out on economic opportunities from not having friends. This one really hit home for me because I'm a bit of a loner myself. I have never really thought of the fact that I'm not getting gigs or, getting opportunities or getting clients because I don't have that many friends. It totally makes sense. And then the disadvantages or the disadvantage of it being bad for your health, like not having friends, that makes a lot of sense, especially your mental health, because, when you don't have friends, you feel lonely, you feel sad and whatnot. For those of you who aren't watching and are listening, I may sound a bit funny. I'm applying lip gloss. No, not lip gloss. Lip balm right now. Yeah, there's a difference. So the irony is that my name also is Eniola. And funny enough, Eniolami, Enioluwa, who is the famous influencer. He also does the whole lip gloss thing in his videos. But I'm doing lip balm because my lips are feeling a bit dry right there. Where was I? Yes, mental health and friendship. That is so true. You feel better. You feel more alive when you're hanging out with friends and, you're affirming each other and just helping each other out. And I never really thought of those disadvantages or the downsides of not having friends, And if you flip it around, those are the advantages. Having friends means you have more economic opportunities. Having friends means that your mental health is better and you're maybe even being more physically active because you're hanging out with them or going out with them than just being by yourself. So yeah, there's that. Let me just treat one or two more before I wrap this up. Like I always say, my podcast episodes are meant to be like 30 minutes and we're closing in on 30 minutes right now. If I'm just glancing at the screen, the computer screen, I'm at 19 minutes right now. I also want to talk about, what part did he talk about? He did mention how male friendships and female friendships are different, and that was very insightful. Male friendships are less reliant on physical interaction. Male friendships can get away with, talking on the phone, IMing and whatnot. They can do more of that, but women do brunch more. They do, mimosas more. They go out shopping more. Physical interaction or physical meetings or whatever tend to do more for women and they're more important to women. So that was an interesting dynamic. Another dynamic he mentioned in the documentary was the effect that quarantine and the lockdown and 2020 had on friendships. It kind of did have adverse effects on friendships. People's friendships, a lot of friendships never really bounced back from the lockdown, now that I think about it. And it was a very lonely experience for people, especially people who aren't married or don't have partners or don't have like family, can imagine how lonely and isolating it was for people who live alone in 2020. So yeah, there was that dynamic as well. But to just wrap this all up, I think the final part I want to talk about was one of his last points in the documentary, which was the dystopia we must avoid which is, how things may end up if we continue on this path of isolation and just not having friends.
There's obviously a dystopian version of how these trends could continue, which is a world of essentially atomized individuals without friends, isolated, sad, lonely, perhaps in ill health. I think that's why we have to pay real attention to these trends and to recognize that friendship is incredibly important for human flourishing and that people want to make friends. We're wired to want to be social creatures and to be friends, but that might be harder for us to do so in certain circumstances where we're under too much pressure, where we're too segregated, where the opportunities to cultivate friendship are not there. A key lesson that we learn is that friendships don't form themselves. Friendship is not a flower that just blooms all on its own. It's more like a woodworking project that you have to carve out and continue to work on.
I like that last point. And that's something that a lot of us, and I think I'll end on this note, right? That's something that a mistake many of us make when we think of friendship. We think that friendships just bloom on their own, like Richard said, like it should come naturally. Hanging out should come naturally. Getting along with each other should come naturally. Not having disagreements, shouldn't happen or should just, I put myself in a corner now. Not having disagreements should just be normal. We just assume that friendship should just be like easy peasy and just smooth, but it's not. It's constant work. It's constant checking up on each other, constant fixing each other into each other's schedules. It's just making the effort to be there for one another. And that's the uncomfortable truth about friendship, and one that a lot of people don't like to hear and don't even know. Because when you think about the people who are good friends and who see each other regularly, they're very intentional about their friendship and they put in the work. So that's one key takeaway, that, friendship takes work. It's a type of relationship at the end of the day, and relationships do take work, especially if you want them to progress and to excel. And he also did say, I don't know if that was in the last clip I played, but it's in the documentary itself. I will link it down in the description box below if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you're listening to this episode, you can just search for the Friendship Recession on YouTube. He talked about how people tend to be ashamed to say that they're lonely, and they tend to hide or just not want to accept or admit the fact that they are lonely and that they need friends. When in actual fact, it's natural for us to seek human companionship and human interaction. But he's very right. Me, myself, I've felt weird in the past to admit that I need a friend, or that I would much rather be hanging out with a friend right now than to be by myself or seeing this movie by myself. I go and see lots of movies, and there are many times that I find myself, especially when I'm enjoying a movie, find myself wishing that I wish I was watching this film with a friend, not even with a romantic partner per se, but with a friend to enjoy this awesome film with, or to enjoy this moment with. And it's hard to admit, because when you admit that you're lonely and that you don't have friends, it kind of makes it look like you have a problem, that there's something wrong with you, that making friends should be easy. Everyone has friends. If you don't have friends, then you're a weirdo, right? So that's the wrong the perception that many people have about friendship and about having friends or making friends, or particularly about being lonely, I should say. Yeah. So that's something that we need to debunk, something that we need to just get rid of, that it's not a thing of shame to admit that you want new friends, or that you want to make new friends, or that you are lonely. Because once you admit to that, then you can now get on the road of progress and of fixing the situation and making new friends. And imagine if so many people who are lonely, so many people who are looking for friends, all opened up and said that, this is what's the issue, that they're looking for friends. Then it will be easier for people to find one another and to foster friendships. I really enjoyed the documentary, The Friendship Recession, and it really got the wheels turning in my mind. And I don't know, one thing's for sure, this episode that you're listening to or you're watching is the problem statement. So this is acknowledging that yes, there is a friendship recession. There's a problem. People are losing friends, and people are not able to make friends, or as many friends, or as high quality friendships as they would like. So this is the problem statement. This is what's on ground. So that's what this video is about. I anticipate, or I believe I will need to do a part 2 of this video where I provide the solutions, the recommended solutions as to how we can now start making friends, how we can come out of our shell and admit that we are lonely and that we're looking to make new friends, and where we can find these new friends, how we can foster and develop friendships. Just a solution focused or a solution driven video to be the other side of the coin of this particular video, which was more or less about the problem statement. But I hope I've been able to open up your mind. I hope you'll check out the documentary, The Friendship Recession. It really will open up your mind to the fact that this is not an isolated problem. You're not alone in terms of feeling lonely and not having friends. And once you can come to terms with that, you can get on the road, like I said earlier, to finding a solution and the road to reform, if I can call it that. Yes, sorry, Bob. I quite enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed that too. I hope my thoughts were coherent and were in line. I hope I wasn't all over the place. Yeah. Let me know if I was. Let me know what you thought about the things I said in this video. And if you watched the documentary, the Friendship Recession, tell me what your best bits of the documentary were. Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast or watching the episode. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please remember to rate this podcast 5 stars only. I'm still trying to figure out what the calls to action are for a podcast. This whole podcasting thing, man, it'll take some getting used to. But for the video aspect, saying that this is a video podcast, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do remember to like by clicking on the like button and subscribe to my channel as well by clicking on the black subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for your time. And I guess I'll see you in the next episode. Go out today